going live.
All right, we're back live. We're gonna just vamp for a little bit while waiting for Damien to come back. And does anybody have any questions about what we've done up to this point, where we've gotten up to page 29? And there's some it's not pro forma, we have questions, it's all, and there is policy, so it's not nothing, it's just, I think a lot of this language is taken from other sections. But any questions about where we've gotten to so far? And what we can expect for Tuesday? I'm gonna ask Ron to notify anybody we may have questions of, like somebody from taxes or DFR, to kind of be available. I'll talk to him and figure out a way to, just even if it's by Zoom from their desk, or if we have questions on specific things, we can have relatively easy access to them. Yeah.
I guess I'm just waiting for Damien here. It's just kind of a point, but ponder. One of the things I keep coming back to that I'm not saying I necessarily want to include them, because I would much prefer we stay with the employees number that we have, but with the bill, I was still trying to figure out why we allow self-employed person to make the decision. The second you have one employee, now you're an employee, you lose the right to make that decision for yourself. So when there's one person, you get to say, no, I don't want to participate. And the person standing next to them at work has to. Now they have to. That person doesn't get the option.
Are they working for the same, I mean, they're not.
Yeah, you're a carpenter and now you hire a guy. There's two of you. Now you have to. So why does one person get to say, I'm out, no thank you, but just because you work for a company, you lose the ability to make that decision for yourself? Just seems odd that we're...
Well, I guess, I mean, I guess in the first place is that if you become an employer, it's mandatory for you to pay into the system. Well, I'm sorry. It's mandatory for there to be participation in the system. I mean, you could ask your employee to pay for it, or you can pay for it or not. I mean, however that works.
Yeah.
Or however we settle. I mean, we may settle with 50. Right now it's 50-50. I think it's a question that we can articulate, and I don't necessarily have an answer where, except we're saying with statewide policy that goes down to this level of employers, that's the policy choice,
But it's already true. I mean, when I was a self-employed carpenter, I had an employee, I had to pay unemployment, workers' comp, all that stuff on him. But I didn't on myself. I didn't pay it because I couldn't afford it. But I think, I mean, we've kind of already made the determination that when you are in a supervisory capacity, an employer capacity, and I mean, whether those are just different discussion. But,
yeah, absolutely. I hear you.
But there's precedent, I guess, is what I'm
But you're asking about, I mean, if I was self-employed and then I hired you, you're saying that you don't have a choice as to whether or not you have it or not.
Just because I'm someone who says I don't want to go through the hassle of being, I'd rather just work for somebody, get my paycheck on Friday, and be done. We're treating that person as if they're not capable of making the decision that they want this program or not, whereas telling the self-employed person, we trust your judgment. So that's kind of,
That's
why we feel that way.
And I think it's just the nature of being an employer and what benefits you're being mandated to provide to an employee.
And to your point, you're saying that, so you wouldn't, as the employer who now has one person, you could choose to still not pay the taxes for yourself, but you'd have to pay it for the employee.
Yeah, I was not a corporation, I was sole proprietor.
Yep.
And so I had to provide a certain level of things for my employees, not for myself.
So do we see, is this bill, does this allow for that? That scenario of I'm a carpenter and now I have to provide still as the business owner, I don't have to take part still. But just for that one employee, I have to pay in. Or they pay in.
Right, he could not pay in for himself. But he could pay in for himself as a self-employed.
Right, so I think I'm in that same scenario. If I am self-employed and I hire you, I have to pay in on you, but I am still self-employed because I'm not
Still given the option to
not an
join the
LLC or a corporation. So I'm still, this is my understanding of it anyway. I'm still self-employed, but I'm self-employed and an employer at the same time.
I think, I have to ask,
Yes, you are right. Yes.
I'd have to ask Damien, but I think that applies to workers' comp too. Where if I'm an employer, I don't have to have workers' comp on myself, but if I'm self-employed, I don't have to have workers' comp on myself, but if I hire somebody, I have to have workers' comp on that individual.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
The difference, there is, the interesting part of the administration's plan is this notion, because it's voluntary from the employer's perspective, that eventually an employee who may be affiliated with an employer will be allowed to sign up in a couple of years or not, right? I mean,
Jesus, come
we went through this yesterday.
Change the ringtone and there's still calls.
Go to focus,
I did it.
go to do not disturb.
Where's
Thought I
the
did.
bucket?
Yeah, I need a.
We're live, so I didn't want to mention an amount. But that's a different scenario than what you're talking about. You know,
I just,
that's a
as a,
voluntary program.
as a overarching idea of why can you take two people and say, you're capable of making your own decisions where they want to go and you're not?
Well, it would be too cynical to say we do it all the time. But I think in this case, no, it's a valid question.
I want to sign on to that.
It's
I just do it here.
I think this is the simplest way. But
Okay, thank you.
as we move to when Amy gets back and when we move to the I just wanted to get some thoughts on the safe leave portion of it, just overall, just the thinking that are people generally comfortable with the notion of the safe leave? And we'll go through the details when we get to them, but we haven't spent a lot of time on them.
I think it's important.
Are you comfortable with the way it's set up so far?
Yeah, we had talked a little bit about, you're gonna have to remind me about how it's currently structured in terms of how it phases in. Yeah,
Well-
how and when it phases in.
Right, and I think that's it becomes a substantial choice because the way this is introduced has language that defines the employer as the +1, which is what we do for FMLA or for PFLA. But the PFLA +1 instead of 10 or 15 goes into effect in 3 years, whereas the safe leave, the way it's written, would go into effect immediately, which I think is confusing and would be And that's something that we should contemplate fixing or aligning with the text so that it's, if we changed it so that it was aligned with the Vermont PFLA, and I guess it depends on where, does it fall into that section so that the 10 or 15 requirement is in effect until 2026, and then that's when the safe leave would go to, it would coincide with it. I mean, or if it's a separate section, we can just align it if we want it to not be confusing to employers, and just say all of the changes can be. So that would require us to change safe leave, the definition, to match what the existing PFLA definition is.
So could we, are we going to talk about that? Should I say my thoughts now or?
We can now, yeah, I hesitate to go line by line without Damien here, but in the meantime, yes, we can talk about.
Well, what I wonder if it would be feasible would be to have safe leave added to our current PFLA guidelines now. So in other words, for the 10 or the 15, whichever is relevant, that would be a new category now under the current guidelines, the 10, the 15. And then it becomes, so I'd like to see that layered onto our current structure now and then become a part of the wage replacement program with the rest of everything when that rolls out.
When those changes happen. The changes to PFL, again, the changes to the existing PFLA, the 10 to 15, bless you.
Happen in 2026. So basically, I would propose that to our current definition, we add a new category now.
Keeping the 10.
Yeah, keeping the 10 and 15. So that the only thing that changes now is we have a new category. So for companies that are currently required, for companies that are currently required to abide by our PFLA, the 10 up and the 15 up, we're adding a new category. And we can get that in place for folks who need it now. That would be my preference.
Okay.
So we got it all wrapped up.
Great, perfect. I will take an early vacation. See you guys next year.
This cannot be your only bill.
You had a number of bills on, when did I see you, on Tuesday?
Yeah.
Have you whittled it down?
The current number,
I just want to say, I didn't ask what the number was, I was just being polite.
the current number is high. I have whittled it down, but if you guys want that information, I keep track to keep my spirits up because the number goes down each day.
It's like the First United Way thermometer.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, because otherwise it just feels like a never-ending series.
So what is that number, Damien?
I can't remember. It's 6 or 8 left to start.
That's great.
So, for those of you who are waiting for a bill from me, it's on the way.
That's great.
So,
Super Bowl's 4 hours long.
yep.
All right, are you back up to, page 29 yet?
Of course I am.
All right.
So,
So 2065, jumping in, we've got 17 minutes. I don't know. Well, let's see how far we go.
do this.
So confidentiality of information, section A is basically saying that information about the benefits, and this is exempt from public inspection and copying.
Yeah.
And that the information shall not be admissible other than one brought pursuant to the provisions of this chapter.
Again, yeah, we're not. Basically, your private medical information that you submit in relation to a claim here is not going to be disclosed by the division. And we're making it not admissible as evidence. Theoretically, there are isolated instances when a court could order the division to release documents, but that's essentially what you're talking about here, is it's private unless there's a court order.
And following the following sections, the notwithstanding sections are if the individual needs the information in a claim, in an appeal or a claim.
Yeah, the department can't say, oh, you submitted your only copy of that medical document to us. We're going to deny you access to it now.
Right. And then number 2 under that section is the right of the employer to have access to the information.
Yep.
Okay. Disqualifications, it's on the top of page 30.
Yep.
So you cannot receive this benefit if you're receiving workers' compensation of any state, compensation for partial disability, or unemployment compensation from any state.
Yeah, so with the workers' comp, it's important to note, so we've got temporary total disability. So you're unable to work at all. You're receiving workers' comp in relation to that. Temporary partial disability related to the serious health condition that you're seeking benefits for. So you're getting paid under workers' comp for that. You can't get both at the same time is what it's saying. And temporary partial disability also contemplates you being able to continue working. So there's right there is an inherent conflict. And then unemployment compensation, we talked about that. You can't get both at the same time. So this is really just to prevent what's been called the double dipping, where you're receiving state benefits from 2 different pools. It's one or the other, depending on the condition and the situation. So.
Yes, Dennis.
I probably missed this along the way, but if I'm on workers' comp and that only pays 2/3 of my benefit, if this goes through and it pays 100%, can I switch over to it?
If you qualify and you're eligible, and wage replacement is all that you are looking for, because workers' comp provides medical benefits that this does not provide.
Okay.
Theoretically, you could switch over provided you qualified and it was a qualifying condition that prevented you from working. But you can't receive both.
No, yeah.
So, and then.
With this now, let's say, I'm on workers' comp and who knows, I could be out like a year, and so if I had this for 12 weeks, then can I go back onto workers' comp, or once I go off, that's it?
That is a workers' comp question. Workers' comp has what we call a really long tail. It sticks with the injury as long as the injury sticks with you.
Yeah.
I think you might have some pushback from your workers' comp insurer there if you went off workers' comp voluntarily and then tried to go back on. But that's a question I don't know the answer to off the top of my head. It's outside the realm of this bill. What this is basically saying is if you're receiving temporary workers' compensation benefits, that's different than you're permanently disabled because of your workplace injury. But if you're receiving the temporary benefits, total disability, you cannot receive benefits under this at the same time. Partial disability, if it's the same injury, you can't receive benefits under this at the same time. Workers' comp, even though it's 2/3 wage replacement, it's 2/3 tax-free. And it provides medical benefits, including things like durable medical equipment, potentially. So the benefit is, even though the wage replacement number is not as high, is likely more significant for someone who's got a workplace injury. Unemployment insurance compensation is a lesser benefit, with a much lower cap. So there you had testimony earlier that talked about concerns about your seasonal employees who go off, and I do have some difficulty thinking of how you could time a serious health condition or a pregnancy, but yeah, conceivably that individual, under the way this is written right now, could qualify for those benefits when they wouldn't otherwise have a job. That's the way the bill's written. So that's a policy piece in the bill. It could be changed. With the unemployment compensation benefits, for sure, staying on the paid leave would be better than switching off and going to unemployment compensation in terms of the amount of wage replacement you get. But
Damon, does this state
Thank you.
clearly that you can't work part-time and receive benefits? And that's the intent, but does it, I'm not recalling it spelling that out.
I was actually just thinking about that in the back of my head. I think that may be language you want to add into the eligibility section. The employee is on leave from employment and unable to, is not working due to one of the following reasons. So I'll finesse that language a bit over the weekend. So, sorry, just, okay. And that's language you could add in potentially into the disqualifications. So with unemployment insurance, for example, individuals are disqualified from receiving unemployment insurance outside of partial unemployment insurance if they receive wages for weeks they're receiving severance pay, things like that, vacation pay. So you can't go out on unemployment insurance while you're on vacation with your family.
Or if you get 12 weeks of severance, you have to use your 12 weeks of severance before you.
Yep, before you
go into UI, not, you can't do your 26 of UI and then get your 12 weeks.
right, and they take lump sums and they figure out what your weekly amount is and they stretch that for unemployment insurance. So that's language we could add here if the committee wanted to look at it.
You want to just put it in brackets and just have a conversation about it on Tuesday. All right, section 2067 is protection from retaliation. Some of this is retaliation language is showing up more and more in our statutes. Tammy, the question I had was on line 15. If you can, line 15 reminds me of, I don't want to call it a vestige because I don't know that it's been around this long, but we had a situation many moons ago about employees were being penalized for taking their time off. And this seems to say that if I'm taking combined time off, or in this case, paid family leave, I can't be penalized under some job rule or whatever that an employer may impose.
Yeah, so back in my first year or biennium here, this was an issue that was considered in the Senate, and there was talk about this. It's basically called, I forget the term, the industry term for it, but it's an attendance policy that basically says after 6 absences, you get like a demerit or something like that. And when you get to, or 3 absences, whatever it is, it basically penalizes you. And once you get above a certain point, it can be grounds for termination or demotion or reduction in salary, depending on the employer. Not all employers use this sort of policy, but this is basically saying if you're taking leave that benefits are provided for under this, it's not subject to one of those attendance policies. So that is where this comes from. Back in the day, that bill that was in the Senate didn't end up advancing, but that's what this is looking at. That one looked more at short-term sick leave. This one is looking obviously at a much longer-term leave where it'd be very easy to exceed some of the limits in those policies, so.
Okay. Section 2068, page 31. Just notice, it's just saying that among the many other notices that are posted in lunchrooms or employee rooms, that there's a notice that this benefit is available.
Yep. It also requires notice to new employees within 30 days after they are hired. So that's a new provision you're seeing in some of the bills these days. The standard law language is just the posting on the wall, that poster you've seen in the break room. This is new, requiring employers to provide written notice, which could be a PDF mailed out to employees or a piece of paper handed to them.
Okay, section 2069. This is saying that if there's any collective bargaining agreements that this bill will not diminish, so that if somebody's offered more better benefits under any contract, that this will not change those unless by negotiation. And the same thing with letter B, same idea.
Yeah, so it's two sides of the same coin. Employers' obligations is A, employees' rights is B. Basically saying this, if you've got a contract that either puts you on the hook for more or gives you better rights than what's given in this law, then your contract prevails because it's above the floor. The law is the floor. You can negotiate better.
Section C is just on the bottom of 31 is just saying that rights and protections of this under the Family Medical Leave Act are not diminished. Page 32. This whole section, all these sections here are about just rights and conditions. It's about job. It's about if I take time off or leave. And
Subsection C is basically saying you have the job protection rights and the benefit protection rights that are already provided in existing law. So this doesn't change those rights. So that's basically what it's saying is even if you're receiving benefits under this, your rights under the job protection laws, Family and Medical Leave Act, PFLA, the Safe Leave Law, if you enact it, those are all stay the same.
that section gets us to page 33.
Actually,
Is there more? Did I miss?
so just on 32, before we move on, I apologize to anyone following on YouTube. I haven't updated for a couple of pages. Oops, sorry. I don't know why that's happening. On 32, subsection D says you can't waive your rights. Subsection E maps out job protection for bereavement leave because it's not covered under one of those other laws. So that's all. And that gets us to 33.
So section, line 3, number 2, just enforces the fact that benefits will be maintained, that employer shall continue the employee's employment benefits for the duration of the leave at the level and under the conditions.
Yeah, your employer can't cancel your health insurance if you're taking a bereavement leave that's paid for under this law.
And that the employer may require that the employee contributes to the cost.
Yep. Yeah, so your employer can't cancel it, but your employer can also say you've got to pay your 20% premium contribution or whatever it is.
And then to end section 1 is the refunds of contributions, which I think we should probably not, it's 3:30. I kind of want to draw the line of the day to before, let's not, I don't think talking about refunds of contributions, I think it's clear what it's asking for. It's a huge policy choice. Commissioner Bolio's points were well taken about, is it, it's almost, is it worth it over $70 was his question. And then he led into like, should we have a checkoff box? Should we do should it be an individual benefit? So this is something that is going to take more time to talk about than the next 2 minutes as we close up. So let's just stop there. Last question for committee. I asked I threw out an idea the other day about if there was any thoughts about changing the way that this bill moves along from beginning to end. So I think the proposal that we talked about most was saying the sections that have to do with the paid PFML, the paid family medical and leave back, the unpaid section, so it's parental leave back, might go first. And then the changes to safe leave would come second. And then the changes for the MLI would come. And then the definitions would come. Does anybody have any thoughts about that? And it's just an idea that popped into my head. Sometimes they have a weight that continues, sometimes they just fritter away, and I just didn't know if anybody had any thoughts on it.
So my thoughts in talking with Chair was that the existing paid family leave or unpaid family parental leave is the foundation. And adding safe leave to that is extending the foundation. And then the paid leave is a structure built on top of that foundation. So that's my kind of framing of it, to keep using building terms.
And the definition,
Very relevant.
And the definitions are the shingles.
Yeah, that's the window dressing.
Yeah.
What's the air barrier?
It's just,
What sort of insulation are you using?
it's full of hot air.
Hey, it's Friday.
Yeah, that's the order that makes sense to me, so.
Does anybody have any opposition to it at all, or does it, it doesn't, again, it's a technical change, it's not a structural change.
I'm good with it.
Okay.
Bother me.
All right, so for Tuesday,
Well, see a radical different bill, but,
I was gonna say, for Tuesday, do you want an updated draft or do you want to finish going through this? And I'll have the draft working in the background. And then we'll finish going through this, and then after that, I'll give you the updated draft. Does it make sense to finish going
Yes.
to 33 to 48 before you see the updated?
yes, because I think it's less dense in some respects. Yep. All right, with that, I think we can go off live.